of life. Let me try from the first to indicate the point that we're aiming at. The point is this, that human consciousness is at the same time as being a form of awareness and sensitivity and understanding, it's also a form of ignorance. The ordinary everyday consciousness that we have leaves out more than it takes in. And because of this, it leaves out things that are terribly important. It leaves out things that would, if we did know them, allay our anxieties and fears and horrors. And if we could extend our awareness, you see, to include those things that we leave out, we would have a deep interior peace. Because we would all know the one thing that you mustn't know, you know, according to the rules of our particular social game. The one thing you mustn't know, that's really not allowed, that is the lowdown on life. And the lowdown, on the one hand, means the real dirt on things. But the lowdown is also what is profound, what is mysterious, what is in the depths. And there's something left out. And our everyday consciousness screens this out in the same way that when you say you have weaving, you have, say, on this rug here in front of us, when the black finishes here, the black threads will go underneath and then appear again over here, then they'll go underneath the white and then they'll appear again over here, you know? So that the back will be the obverse pattern of the front. Now, the world is like that. Our sense organs are selective. They pick out certain things, they're receptive. For example, we have a small band of what you might call a spectrum of light, of sound, of tactile sensation, and so on, to which the human organism is sensitive. But we know that outside that small band, there is a huge range of vibrations to which we have built instruments that are sensitive. Things like cosmic rays, ultraviolet rays, gamma rays, hard X-rays, so on. They're all outside the band of our spectrum. And obviously, there are things that are outside the range of our instruments. We may build new instruments someday which will evoke, bring into our consciousness other orders of vibration altogether. But yet, as yet, we don't know about them. So you could imagine, you see, the universe is a vast, vast system of vibrations and has infinite possibilities.
Infinite possibilities. Hello to you all. You're watching RHTV Live. We're streaming live from the beautiful city of Maastricht. And of course, we're going to show you on the map where Maastricht is. Here we go. Here we have the beautiful city of Maastricht, well known for the Maastricht Treaty. Yeah. The what now? The Maastricht Treaty. We're going to show that on the screen too. Here we go. The Maastricht Treaty. The Treaty of Maastricht, officially known as the Treaty of European Union, was signed on February 7th, 1992 in Maastricht, the Netherlands. It established the European Union and came into force on November 1st, 1993. So that's interesting to know, huh? Yeah. So the last time we were live, we were talking about the Pakistan-Afghanistan, war, and we got a warning from the United Nations. Yep, they're also watching RHTVLive. And we got a warning. Climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperature and weather patterns. Human activities have been the main driver of climate change, primarily due to burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. That's a good thing to know. But wait a minute. What about what this guy says here? Wait.
We had in Senate estimates last year, Malcolm Roberts asked the CSIRO, can you please give me a few scientific papers that prove human emissions of carbon dioxide drive global warming? Now, I know Malcolm well, and he uses some of my questions that I feed him. And the CSIRO presented him with one scientific paper, and then it wasn't on the subject. So he asked them again, can you please show me that human emissions of carbon dioxide drive global warming? Now, it's a trick question. We'll come to that. They couldn't. This is a question that I've been asking scientists around the world for 25 years. I've asked journalists this question. I've asked politicians this question. It's no wonder I get cancelled, because no one can show from the scientific literature that human emissions of carbon dioxide drive global warming. Now, let's imagine that I'm wrong. And once I was wrong, but I was mistaken. But let's imagine I was wrong. And we say, okay, human emissions do drive global warming. Well, the total human emissions are 3% of the total emissions that we get on planet Earth. So if you can show that 3% of emissions drive global warming, you have to show that the 97% of natural emissions, which come from ocean degassing, don't drive global warming. That's never been shown. So we have built this whole empire based on something that cannot be shown. And in fact, you can show the opposite. The whole move with human-induced global warming has got nothing to do with the environment. It's got everything to do with deconstruction of the way we think and our society as a mechanism of unelected people gaining power. And I'm sick of it. And that's why I wrote this book, Green Murder. It's a full frontal attack on those who are leading the charge.
Exactly. They want control over our lives. The people in power, want control over our lives. So there you have that. The planet's been surviving for, millions of years. And some human emissions aren't very bad, put it that way. So we have that going on, right? The United Nations is controlling RHTVLive. We're not allowed to talk about the truth. Nope. In a world full of lies, the truth is not prevalent, right? So, what else? What else? There's a lot happening in the world, right? We have Lebanon having a new parliament, which is very interesting, right? Because we know that Lebanon is basically a fractured country politically. There are political parties, and you have Hezbollah. And Hezbollah is decreased by the Israeli strikes and such. And now we have a president in Lebanon. Yeah, there we go. There we have Lebanon. Now you see the borders clearly, even though the southern border is not really a border. It's a so-called blue line. Anyway, we're going to go over to Lebanon, right? And see what's happening over there. Here we have Lebanon.
After 2 years of deadlock, Lebanon's parliament has elected a new president.
Joseph Aoun. Joseph Aoun.
And with that, Army Commander Joseph Aoun won enough votes to win the office. It was the 13th time MPs had voted on this matter. Lebanon has been without a president since Michel Aoun's term ended in October 2022. Lebanon's newly elected president is speaking right now. There you go in Parliament. Let's take a listen.
Way up over here on this hillside,
That's some bad audio we got there.
In all aspects of judiciary, and to develop the work of the judiciary and the formation of judiciary based on effectiveness and capabilities and transplant. And we will make all the terms of taking the actions in the legal procedures easy and simple. We will encourage investment. We will fight corruption. Also, I pledge not to accept any law that is contradicting with the Constitution. I will play my role with all fairness and objectivity and within my rights of doing this. I will leave the Parliament and the Cabinet to consider their own matters. I will call for parliamentary consultations in order to have a Prime Minister that will be a partner, not an opponent. We will practice our capabilities. We will do our own things in order to have the freedom of the country and to have the justice everywhere and to have democracy all over the country everywhere. And we will be updated. We will ask everyone to be updated regarding what happened in the past so as not to repeat in the future. To the Cabinet and to the Parliament, I would like to say that we will consider so many jobs in the public affair and public sector. And the organizations and the formations will be there in order for the country and for the organizations and the people to live in dignity, and in order to hire those who know better for every part and for every job. No centralization. And we need to administer all the affairs of every organization, and no one must be worried to say whatever he wants or whatever she wants. We need to protect the producer and we need to protect the consumer. We need to have good plans. We need to have a fair budget. We need to know how to administer our financial affairs. We need to offer quantitative services to the Lebanese people in order to keep the dignity of.
You know, I don't know much about Lebanese politics, right? But I do know that they are subsidized basically by the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. Now, if you have that, you'll never get off the International Monetary Fund, right? We've seen the same in Argentina, where Milei says, nope, we're going to cut that. We're going to cut that. The ties with the IMF, yeah, we're going to cut that. So Lebanon needs to recover, basically, monetarily. We know that a few years ago, people were robbing banks in Lebanon because there was no more money and such. So I'm not making this up, right? I'm not making this up. You may say, you're making this up. No, I'm not. Let's take a look at Lebanon bank robbery. There you go. So what's behind the spell of bank robberies in Lebanon? There you go. People robbing banks making themselves a hero, according to the Lebanese people, right? Basically destroying their own economy because the reserves are spent, and now Lebanon needs to gain money again with no export, little to less export, and it's going to be a very hard task. They need to lend money again, and from who are they going to lend money? Well, maybe the IMF again. Who knows? Who knows? So we have that going on, right? A new president in Lebanon, and this was 2 years ago, and very sad to see that there is an economic crisis in Lebanon. But yeah, that's one of the things that we're looking at. We're also looking at other parts of the world, such as California, right? The forest fires in California. Now, that is very, very sad to see, right? Because, lots and lots of people are dying, even though there are also good moments, let's put it that way. Here we have someone very, very concerned and jumping around the fire, and we will see why. Did you see that? He saved a bunny. Nah. So there are good people in and around this planet, right? There you go. Here he has the bunny. And very, very sad thing to see. Let's take a look at the computer animation of the fire. And yeah, according to the United Nations, it's all due to climate change. Well, we have different ideas. And you're allowed to spread your ideas, right? I have freedom of speech, right? Maybe not. Who knows?
In the newsroom here have put together this incredible animation that shows the timeline of how this fire advanced through the communities of Pacific Palisades and Malibu. Here it is, January 7th at 6:17. It was at 2,900 acres. And then on January 8th, that explosion to 15,000 acres. And then the next day, 17,000 acres as it progressed into the mountains. And then on the 9th, 19,000 acres. And you can see how far it had gotten into Malibu. And then we come to yesterday at 20,000 acres. And you can see 20 and then to 21,000 acres. But you see how far across it spread, and all the way up to the 11th, which is today at 22,660 acres. This is just information in the newsroom here have put together.
So there we have it, the Palisades wildfire. And yeah, how did it start? How did it start? Well, there's an investigation going on, but we are investigating ourselves, and yeah, we found climate change and some guy arrested, right? Here you go. Here. Now, how did that fire start? Now, you tell me. You have someone here being arrested, and you have a fire right here. Now, how did that fire start?
I thought you meant
So you have arson going on, right? And Very, very sad thing to see. Here we have a woman standing right in front of her house and saying they have no water. They have no water to extinguish the fire.
The lady that cut the funding from the fucking fire hydrants.
Karen Bass. Fuck her.
Fire her.
They have no water.
They actually have no water?
I actually asked him, this guy right here. I said, how do you have no water? He said, we have no water.
Oh my God.
We have nothing.
That's so fucked up, man.
So you're living near an ocean and you're telling me that you have no water. How does that work? How does that work? Gavin Newsom, you should be fired. You should be fired. You should be ashamed of yourself, man. You know, really, really sad thing to see. We have many people from the Palisades, such as Mel Gibson, who has lost his house. It's burned down right to the ground. And yeah, he's speaking out. He's speaking out. So we also have this Ukrainian captives, also very interesting. This is also very interesting. We're going to touch on this pretty soon. But first, go to LA, right? Wait. Here we have Mel Gibson talking about the fire in LA.
Well, you know, I know they were messing with the water, letting reserves go for one reason or another. They've been doing that a while. California has a lot of problems that sort of baffle the mind as far as why they do things. And then in the events like this, you sort of look, well, is it on purpose? Which, it's an insane thing to think. But one begins to ponder whether or not there is a purpose in mind. What could it be, you know? I don't know. Do they want the state empty? I don't know.
Well,
what is the purpose in mind? What is the purpose in mind? Everything's done by program, right? It's pre-programmed. We've had many LA fires before, but not like this. You know, it's all pre-programmed. You know, and it's very, very sad to see. Very, very sad. So let's take a look at the corridor crew who is in LA near the fire, and they have no electricity, yet they can download a film somehow, probably using Elon Musk's satellite, right?
Hey guys, Nico here. I'm currently at my place. It's day 4 of no electricity. You know, with the LA wildfires happening right now, we thought it'd be interesting to share our story and experience. Plus, with the news footage, it's a lot of images of chaos and flames and burnt houses, and it's really hard to get a sense of space and geography. And we're going to try to fix that with this video. We're going to take a telephoto camera to the top of one of the mountains. We're going to show you the mountains that have been burning, the cities that have been affected, and hopefully give you a bit of a clearer picture and a better understanding of what's actually happening here in Los Angeles. Also, 100% of the ad revenue of this video is going to be donated to charities to support the victims of these wildfires, and I'm going to push you to donate as well. We have links down in the description below. People need your help. All right, let's get to it.
As you can see, there's some ashes on the React couch. And I don't know if the white balance of the camera is set accordingly, but there's a yellow cast in the studio. As you guys have probably heard, because it's been on the news everywhere in the world, there are major wildfires in Los Angeles. It's been hard to get a bird's eye view of what exactly is happening. The news is all over the place with all these different things they're talking about. There's the Palisades fires as well. So we're gonna hop in the car and head out there, not to Altadena specifically, but to a safe spot and see what we can film. Thankfully, no one here has lost a house or anything to the fires. We're the lucky ones.
For me, it was Monday, and I started hearing like, oh, there's gonna be a big windstorm tomorrow. And then as we got closer, we got into Tuesday, they're like, oh, this is gonna be the biggest windstorm LA has seen in 15 years. And then I got home, and sure enough, it started being incredibly windy. Yeah. Knocked out the power. I saw a transformer explode in my backyard.
That's crazy.
Within 2 hours, my power line, specifically to my house, breaks and falls into my yard. The Palisades fire started. And you can see the smoke from the studio. But then that night, Clint sends us a text message. He goes, oh shoot, fire just started in Eaton Canyon. He was in Eaton Canyon right before the fire started. And you can just hear like the trepidation in his voice.
Pasadena fires. Shoot.
And that has turned into a massive apocalyptic scenario. I mean, Palisades has been wiped off the map, but Altadena is like right next to where basically we all live. And it's been hard to figure out what has happened to Altadena because it's been covered by a smoke cloud. It seems like there's not a lot of it left, but I don't know.
I got a long camera and a tripod on my backpack here. I'm gonna ride an e-bike up a hill and try and chase these guys on their one wheels.
Heads up, we gotta be careful because there's literally a down power line lying on my garage.
Okay, let's watch out for that.
Here it is.
What the heck? Oh, it's right here.
It's right here.
Oh.
So, you know, don't touch it.
I thought it'd be like further away.
What does it taste like? Don't do it!
So the way the power goes into my house is it came off this pole here, and then it actually had a steel cable, which is lying on top of the hibiscus plant here, that tensioned it, and it had a bend, and it went into my power supply up there. So that steel cable snapped, and the whole power line fell down.
Oh, right here.
And it's right here. It's really sketchy. I don't think it's hot, but it's still pretty sketchy.
Like I woke up the morning after and it was really smoky and I was like, oh, that's not so bad. And I tried to drop Gideon off at school because it was technically still open. I was like, you know, might as well, like we don't have power. I'm there to drop him off and I slow down and there's like no one outside except one greeter. She's like, oh yeah, sorry, his teacher's not even here yet. I got a text message like an hour later saying all schools are closed. That's when it kind of hit. I was like, oh, here we go. Like there is.
Here, roll down your window neck.
This is damage. Whoa.
Check this out right here.
Dude.
Yeah, crunch.
That's a very big tree. Oh my God. The tree's like this
house
still?
Took a big chunk into the roof here too.
My tire is lopsided.
I've always like had this, I guess, philosophy where like, if I can, I'm gonna get my eyes on it. I'm gonna figure it out for myself. I'm gonna be aware of what's going on. You know, we got these wheels. There's a big hill behind my house. I hit up Ren and Alex to see if we wanted to go out and see what was happening. And so the windstorm was going crazy, but on the top of the mountain is clear. We didn't have to worry about any debris, and we went up there. And on that ride up, we saw 3 transformers explode. We saw a whole neighborhood lose power. We could see the Palisades fire burning out in the Santa Monica Mountains. And then we could see the glow from the Eaton fire. And when we got to the top, we finally got to see it in full. And the flames were huge, it was spreading. It was all on the hillside at that time, but you could see a stream of cars coming down the hill from traffic, from people evacuating. It was nice to get up there and get eyes on it, and it was crazy to see because it was just this huge roaring inferno. I mean, just wondering, like, is it gonna stay in the hills? What's gonna happen? So we rode down from the mountain after checking out the fires. The neighborhood we went into, there was no power. It was really eerie going through a whole neighborhood where it's pitch black, couldn't see anybody. But as we're going down the street, we see a whole huge tree. One of these huge pines had fallen and had thankfully fallen into the street, but it just broke all the branches of the other trees that it broke through. We keep going a little further and we see another huge tree straight across the street, right through a house and a fence, and blocking the street entirely. And it's one of those things where if they had to evacuate, there's no way out of that street. But the wind destruction was crazy because it was almost hurricane level winds. And overnight, that Eaton Canyon fire got huge, and all those sparks and all those embers have gotten blown down into Altadena. And so when we get to the top of the mountain here and show you the geography of it, hopefully we'll see how smoky it is, and we'll see what exactly is burning and what isn't.
Nick, try to go for that tower up there.
That tower used to be an old bomb warning system alarm. Yeah, there's a big diesel powered horn up there that would crank that thing. I'm hoping that from up there we can get a glimpse of what exactly is happening in Altadena.
It's pretty smoky. It's pretty clear on this side, but like there is a dark
smoke lingering in the air still.
You can clearly see a giant plume of smoke on the other side, so we're gonna get a better view up here in a bit. You can see here too, all the dust and sand and gravel has been blown off to the side of the road.
This is already pretty ominous.
Wow, so hazy. There's actually more visibility than I thought we'd have. It's still pretty hazy.
So it looks like most of the fires actually in Altadena are pretty much out now, because the fire is now very heavily up around Mount Wilson and the other side of it. Mount Wilson is up there in the smoke. You can't see it currently.
Okay. The reason why this is kind of freaking me out though, and in LA there's lots of like light colored buildings to deal with, you know, the heat. And you can see there's this circle, like a patch, where you can see the trees and the darkness of all that kind of go up to the mountains, but there's no white within it. There's nothing light in that area there, because obviously I guess the fire went through there, because you can see though.
That's NASA right there. That's JPL, all those big white buildings.
I can't imagine how hard the firefighters had to work the past 2 days here. They've been very stretched thin. You know, it's one thing when like your job is just an important job. It's another thing when like people's lives depend on your job. Like it stops becoming a job and starts becoming like duty, and just, you know, going without sleep and pushing yourself to do as much as you can. It's crazy.
Do you guys want to go higher?
Yeah, let's go up there, and
if we're gonna see anything, I think this lens will help us, so.
How many millimeters is that, Sam?
600 millimeters.
So we probably already said at the beginning of the video, but the Red Cross and Direct Relief are two charities that we support and would encourage you to donate. We'll have links in the description below. But yeah, you guys should help out. Some people need your help right now, both here and in the Palisades.
Clint literally just texted me 20 minutes ago saying that like the fire reached the top of Mount Wilson where the observatory is. There's a famous photo of Einstein up there in front of the giant telescope right before they confirmed general relativity on top of the mountain.
So let's take a look at some other images. Here we go.
And it make me complete a simple thing.
No, we're not going to play the song. Copyrighted. So here we have LA burning, right? Very, very sad thing to see, you know, and all the beautiful buildings are set ablaze, and people, you know, are stupid enough to drive in all these flames. But it's also, you know, spectacular images that we see here. And yeah, I feel for the American people, right? This is a national tragedy, and this is not handled correctly, right? You guys are next to an ocean and you don't have any more water? What? Really? Really? You should be fired, Gavin Newsom. You should be fired. They're really sad to see this one, right? And that one. So let's take a look at what's happening here. Here we have Mr. Fico, which is President, the Slovak Prime Minister, and he's going to tell what's happening, right? The last time we looked at Ukraine, we saw that Ukraine was about to close the pipeline, and now the pipeline is closed, and Slovakia and Hungary and other Eastern European nations are, you know, don't have the capacity anymore to support themselves. And yeah, Fico is done with Zelensky. He says, you know, you have to reinstate the pipeline, otherwise you won't get any European support for your war in the Donbass, and we will withdraw with the refugees and stuff like that. So very interesting.
Nie som na to, aby som šiel po ruke prezidentovi Zelenskému. A priznám sa, že už niekedy mám plné zuby. Chodí po tej Európe, len žobre a vydiera, ostatných pýta peniaze. Jednoducho toto musí skončiť. Skúste trošku myslieť aj na túto krajinu. Nie iba na svoje úzkoprosé politické cieľe. Čo budeme robiť pre Boha, keď ten plyn nebude? Vy si myslíte, že Nemci nám pošlú plyn, keď oni budú mať málo? Nepošlú nám nič. Nič nám nepošlú.
So he's basically saying that Zelensky is a bully, and yeah, he is a bully. You know, people are dependent on that gas, wherever they are. You know, people are dependent on the gas, and you, Zelensky, you deny it. You deny it. And, you know, I can't really blame Zelensky because, yeah, he's trying to win the war. But there is a crisis, an EU energy crisis. And, yeah, you may say I'm a weird conspiracy theorist, but nope. Here we go. EU new energy crisis. And Azerbaijan is going to cut off the gas for the eastern part of Europe. A very, very sad thing to see, but this is happening. And, you know, many people don't really have a broad perspective, right? Azerbaijan, I don't know where that is, right? So we're going to show it on the map. And you'll get more perspective on what's happening in and around our beautiful planet. So here we have Azerbaijan, which has a deal with the EU to supply them with gas and such. And Azerbaijan says, nope, not anymore. We're going to cut off the gas. So basically, Azerbaijan is supporting the eastern countries, such as Moldova, Romania, Bulgaria, and Serbia. You know, so, and Serbia also got like gas from Russia with Hungary and Slovakia. We just saw Fico basically saying, nope, no more Zelensky, no more. You need to cut this, reinstate the pipeline. And yeah, Azerbaijan is choosing the side of Russia, saying, buy EU, buy, no gas anymore for you guys. And the EU is basically, we have no power. Germany has solar panels and windmills. Well, that does not work during the winter. The same goes for the Netherlands, even though we still have gas, but that's also losing in the market because our cabinet says, nope, we need to go green. Even though we have a new cabinet, and Wilders had said, nope, we're not going to go do the Green Deal. Nope, we're not going to do that. Yeah, we're going green. We are going green, and Wilders and such are not going to stop it, right? So that is basically a very big problem, a very big concern for Europe. And basically, we shoot ourselves in the foot because in the North Sea, we have a very big pocket of gas, right? And Netherlands says, nope, we're not going to use that. We are going to put some windmills, a few hundreds of windmills at a nature reserve, and yeah, that's going to supply us for energy. You know, it's stupid. It really is stupid. So the EU is shooting themselves in the foot, the Netherlands too, and yeah, we are dependent on other supplies of gas. Now, why am I showing the Middle East? You may wonder yourself, why am I showing the Middle East? Well, Qatar and Saudi Arabia had a deal with Turkey, and the U.S. negotiated that deal, you know, for a pipeline through Syria. Now, Bashar al-Assad said, nope, there's going to be no pipeline through my country. So now Bashar al-Assad is gone. The paradigm is shifted. We have HTS, which is a terrorist organization, Al-Qaeda Light or Al-Qaeda Cherry, you know, such as Cherry Cola, Al-Qaeda Vanilla, whatever. It's still Al-Qaeda having control over Damascus. So that's all happening, right? Now we have a broader perspective on what's going on. We know that all wars are basically wars for resources and such. But the EU is in a new energy crisis, and we're going to take a look at this here.
The European Union is facing an unparalleled energy crisis in 2025, driven by a series of interconnected geopolitical and economic challenges. The situation began with Ukraine's decision not to renew its gas transit agreement with Russia, effectively halting the flow of Russian gas to Europe. This was compounded by Qatar's warnings to suspend liquefied natural gas exports to the EU over regulatory disputes, as well as escalating trade tensions with the United States, which has pressured Europe to increase its imports of American LNG. Adding to these difficulties, Azerbaijan, a key supplier for Eastern European nations, particularly Serbia and Bulgaria, has abruptly stopped its gas deliveries. This latest disruption has further strained the region's already fragile energy infrastructure. Together, these crises pose, well, a significant threat to the stability of Europe's energy supplies, undermining economic competitiveness and raising critical concerns about energy security across the continent. On January 11, 2025, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić announced that Azerbaijan had halted natural gas deliveries to Serbia, citing force majeure circumstances. This term often refers to unforeseeable events, such as natural disasters or technical failures, that make it impossible for a party to fulfill contractual obligations. The disruption has significantly impacted Serbia's daily energy supply, which relies on 1.7 million cubic meters of gas from Azerbaijan. Serbia has been attempting to diversify its energy sources to reduce its dependency on Russian gas. A notable step in this direction was the 2023 agreement between Serbia and Azerbaijan, under which Azerbaijan would supply 400 million cubic meters of gas annually starting in 2024. Despite these efforts, Russia continues to supply the bulk of Serbia's natural gas, highlighting Serbia's transitional phase toward energy diversification. The sudden disruption underscores the importance of Serbia's gas reserves. The country has turned to its strategic reserves to manage the shortfall, but the timeline for restoring gas deliveries from Azerbaijan remains unclear. These reserves, while critical for emergency situations, may not sustain Serbia for an extended period if the disruption continues. In the broader context, Serbia's annual gas consumption exceeds 3 billion cubic meters, with much of it used for heating, electricity generation, and industrial processes. The absence of Azerbaijani gas underscores the region's vulnerability to technical or geopolitical disruptions, making the need for diversified and reliable energy infrastructure more urgent. Bulgaria also faced a suspension of natural gas deliveries from Azerbaijan between January 7 and January 11, 2025, due to technical issues. This interruption coincided with operational difficulties at the Shah Deniz Alpha platform in Azerbaijan, a major source of natural gas in the Caspian Sea region. BP, the operator of Shah Deniz, temporarily halted operations after detecting a technical issue in the subsea gas condensate export line. The details of the technical failure have not been fully disclosed, but such interruptions are a reminder of the challenges associated with operating in complex subsea environments. Bulgaria consumes around 3 billion cubic meters of natural gas annually. After the cessation of Russian gas supplies in April 2022, due to geopolitical tensions and sanctions related to the Ukraine conflict, Bulgaria took proactive measures to diversify its energy imports. It secured a long-term agreement with Azerbaijan for approximately 1 billion cubic meters of gas per year, a crucial step in mitigating reliance on Russian energy. Bulgaria also invested in liquefied natural gas imports, with terminals in Greece playing a significant role in this diversification strategy. The recent Azerbaijani supply disruption has put Bulgaria's energy security to the test, though it appears the country's diversified approach has provided some buffer. Bulgaria's capacity to tap into LNG imports or draw from its reserves has lessened the immediate impact of this interruption, but the event highlights the fragility of relying on a limited number of suppliers. Azerbaijan has become a critical player in the European Union's strategy to diversify its energy sources and reduce dependence on Russian gas. Through its robust pipeline infrastructure and long-term supply agreements, the nation has positioned itself as a reliable partner in addressing Europe's energy needs. The Southern Gas Corridor, an extensive pipeline network that channels Azerbaijani gas to Europe, serves as the backbone of this partnership. However, recent technical disruptions and broader geopolitical complexities have highlighted the fragility of these supply chains and their implications for European energy security. The Southern Gas Corridor is a monumental infrastructure project designed to transport natural gas from Azerbaijan's Shah Deniz gas field in the Caspian Sea to European markets. It consists of 3 major pipelines: the South Caucasus Pipeline, the Trans-Anatolian Natural Gas Pipeline, and the Trans-Adriatic Pipeline. This interconnected network spans thousands of kilometers, crossing multiple borders to ensure gas reaches the EU. The journey begins with the South Caucasus Pipeline, which originates near Baku, Azerbaijan, and runs through Georgia to the Turkish border. From there, the gas enters Tanap, stretching across the length of Turkey to the Greek border. Finally, it flows into TAP, which delivers the gas through Greece, Albania, and under the Adriatic Sea to Italy. The Southern Gas Corridor not only connects Azerbaijan to Europe, but also plays a pivotal role in the EU's broader efforts to diversify its energy imports. TANAP, a critical component of this corridor, had transported over 73.54 billion cubic meters of gas by the end of 2024. Similarly, TAP has delivered more than 40 billion cubic meters of natural gas to Europe since it began operations in late 2020.
So let's put this in perspective, right? We have Azerbaijan supplying the EU of gas, mainly the eastern part of the EU, Moldova, Romania, Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece, Italy, So we have that going on, right? Because the EU wants to circumvent Moscow, right? Oh, Putin bad, Putin bad. Why is Putin bad? Oh, because he invaded Ukraine. But wait a minute. How did that start in Ukraine? How did that start? Well, we've shown this many, many times, but if we go back in history, 1991, when Ukraine became independent, who was at the Rada, who was at Parliament? Who do you think was at Parliament? Anyone? Well, we're going to show it. And yeah, here we go. George H.W. Bush, August 1st, 1991, Chicken Kiev speech against suicidal nationalism and ethnic hatred. So very interesting.
And hope.
You see, they became independent from the USSR. I know many Ukrainians still think of that period. I know about the Holodomor, the mass starvation and such. I know. I feel that sentiment, but times have changed. Times have changed. But here we have George H.W. Bush in the Rada, in their parliament, saying basically, you are free and you have to look out. Don't let your country break up. Don't let ethnic violence come and such,
Goes out tomorrow, finishes their session they're in now, and I felt it was important to be there on that last day of the final session. This beautiful city brings to mind the words of the poet Alexander Dovchenko. The city of Kiev is an orchard. Kiev is a poet. Kiev is an epic. Kiev is history. Kiev is art. Centuries ago, your forebears named this country Ukraine or frontier because your steppes link Europe and Asia. But Ukrainians have become frontiersmen of another sort. Today, you explore the frontiers in contours of liberty. Though my stay here, as I said, is far too short, I've come here to talk with you and to learn. And for those who love freedom, every experiment in building an open society offers new lessons and insights. You face an especially daunting task. For years, people in this nation felt powerless, overshadowed by a vast government apparatus, cramped by forces that attempted to control every aspect of their lives. And today, your people probe the promise of freedom in cities.
That sounds a bit like the EU, what he's telling. But he was talking about the USSR, right? So, yeah. There we have that. And this is during their independence. And Ukraine is basically a country split into two. You have the western side choosing Europe, and the eastern side choosing Russia. It's always been that way. It used to be part of the Russian Empire, Yugoslavia and all that. But during their independence, George H.W. Bush came to Kiev and gave a speech. So there you have your Western influence. And yeah, it's for Ukraine to decide, right, whether they go fully for Europe or whether they choose Russia, or, which is the best thing in my way of thinking, you stay neutral, right? Stay neutral. Don't choose any sides. That is what divides Ukraine. And it's very sad to see that there are radicals in Ukraine that have taken over power by the United States. We have Victoria Nuland saying, fuck the EU. Yeah, fuck them. Sorry for swearing. But this is what Victoria Nuland had said to Jeffrey Pyatt, which is a U.S. diplomat in Ukraine.
When you're a high-ranking official talking about diplomatic efforts in Ukraine, the last thing you want to do is drop your guard.
So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, the EU.
But that is exactly what reportedly happened between US Assistant Secretary of State Victoria Nuland and US Ambassador to Ukraine Jeffrey Pyatt. The exchange has since surfaced online, including the crude swipe at the European Union. The audio clip of a woman and man, said to be Nuland and Pyatt, hears them discussing strategies to work with the three main opposition figures.
I don't think Klitsch should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea.
In terms of him not going into the government, just let him sort of stay out and do his political homework and stuff. I'm just thinking in terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tony Book and his guys. And, I'm sure that's part of what Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, what he needs is Klitsch and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week. I just think Klitsch going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
There is a suggestion for Nuland to contact Klitschko directly to play to his top dog sensibilities, while Nuland refers to getting the United Nations involved in a political solution. And that's where
Now, the United Nations would be involved, right, in Ukraine if they had the chance. But no. Ukraine wants to solve their own crisis, and no United Nations. So that was off the table. You need a new president. Now, how are you going to do that? You just ousted a president using very dangerous people, put it that way. And politicians were thrown in garbage cans. Do we remember that? Politicians were thrown in garbage cans. Really, I'm not lying. This is what's happening. This is the great divide in Ukraine. Stay neutral, Ukraine. Don't choose a side. Be a transit country or something along those lines, with the pipelines and stuff. Make deals with that instead of breaking it off. Right? That's what you're supposed to do, Zelensky. You are murdering your own people because you have basically you put yourself on the line saying to the EU, you have to give me money. You have to give me money. I want money. I want more money. More money. And you buy yourself some sports cars and stuff like that. We know. Now, you may put me on a not welcome list in Ukraine. That's fine by me, I wouldn't want to be in Ukraine right now. So, and my government, the Netherlands, is supporting Ukraine. Very, very sad thing to see. We used to be a country of peace, and now we support wars and stuff. A very sad thing to see. But let's see how Victoria Nuland answers the question on the telephone call.
the unfortunate comment arises.
I'm obviously not going to comment on private diplomatic conversations.
So you're telling me you're going to impeach Trump because Trump was not even in the frame yet, was not there yet, but he did call Zelensky and congratulated him, you know, for being president, right? You see, you have to understand the EU put the new electoral process in work, right, within Ukraine. So the U.S. topples a government, and the EU says, "Hey, we got new elections here. Yeah, you know, we're going to clean up the mess that the U.S. made, right?" And this is how Poroshenko came into power. And the people in the east of Ukraine said, "Hey, wait a minute, this is not the legal way. This is not the legal way. This is a coup government. We're going to resist to this. We're going to say we're autonomous states within Ukraine." And this is how the whole Ukraine war started, under Poroshenko, who's now in the seats of power and still in parliament. And very, very sad thing to see. But who knows? Who knows? I hope your time has come, Zelensky, because, you know, there were supposed to be elections, right? About a year ago, elections. 2023, October, you said, no, we have a war. We have a war going on. So you postponed the elections. So basically, you're sitting out your term, not being president anymore, even though you claim yourself as a president. And yeah, still calling out the shots, you know. But what do we see here? Zelensky wants elections. The military is exhausted. We have generals such as Zaluzhny, who Zelensky fired, then rehired because there were no generals. And now Zelensky is tired and he wants elections, maybe in March, maybe. And this is also because of the transitional power in the U.S. Now, let's take a look at this here.
All right, Alexander, let's do an update on what is happening in Ukraine, the conflict in Ukraine, what is happening on the front lines. What is going on in Kursk and what is going on in Donbass? Is Kursk still a catastrophe for the Ukraine military? I believe the Russian military said they gave an update on casualties, and I believe they said 50,000.
Yeah.
In Kursk, it is a catastrophe for the Ukraine military, but it looks like Zelensky continues to double, triple, quadruple down in the Kursk direction. Meanwhile, in Donbass, it looks like the Russian advances are accelerating. They're getting very close to Pokrovsk, Chasov Yar, the Dnieper, the south of Donbass. Well, what's going on in Ukraine on the front lines?
I think more and more people are sensing that we are now entering, we are actually entering, in military terms, the end game, that Ukraine's ability to sustain itself is almost exhausted, and that it's increasingly unlikely that it can get through this year. I think that's the first thing to say. Now, I say that there's been an astonishing editorial in the Washington Post that says exactly this. It doesn't want a negotiated settlement in Ukraine. It wants, to keep Ukraine to keep fighting, which is extraordinary. I mean, it really is. The way they phrased it, the bad peace is worse than, well, presumably Ukraine's defeat. But they said straightforwardly in the article that Ukraine is losing men faster than it can replace them, that Ukrainian society is exhausted. And they also said that the figure that the Ukrainians are citing for their casualties of 400,000 is greatly understated, which is the first time, by the way, I've seen that admission in such an important mainstream newspaper is the Washington Post in the United States. And bear in mind, this is an editorial. And as everybody knows, the Washington Post gets information from the intelligence community. So I think the way I read that editorial is it's preparing us for the fact that Ukraine is now entering an end game, a death agony, if you prefer, because that is how it looks across the front line. Now, it is very interesting because the way the Russians conduct military offensives are completely different from the way the West conducts military offensives. If you go back to summer 2023, when the West took over planning for Ukraine, the West's idea of a military offensive was that you focused on a particular position, which you believe is the weak position, you pile it there, you attack on a narrow front, and you try to break through. And this is very much based on American Western ideas of gaining control of territory, outmaneuvering the enemy, seizing control of cities, doing all of those kind of things. As we discussed right at the beginning of the war in a program that we did, the Russian state have a different model. They set out to destroy the enemy's army. So instead of focusing on an attack on a narrow front, they attack right across the front. They gradually, steadily increase the pressure until the enemy army just completely disintegrates. And we are now getting very, very close to that point. Let's start with Kursk. For reasons known best to himself, Zelensky and Sirsky as well decided to.
So, wait a minute. Yeah, mic is on. So the Kursk area is in Russia, and Ukraine is basically, having little impact in the Kursk area, as you've heard. Here we have the Kursk area in Russia, and yeah, it's a big country, and they're not even near Kursk, and it's a very hard offensive when you want to go to Moscow, if that's the plan, right? We know there's a nuclear power plant at Kursk, which was targeted a couple of times, but that is still safe. And yeah, it's a far away line from Moscow, so that is not going to succeed, right? So, and the Russians are basically in the Donbas area, Donetsk, Luhansk, Mariupol, and stuff like that. And of course, Crimea. So why are they in Crimea? Well, Ukraine and Russia had an agreement, Black Sea Agreement, better known as the Kharkiv Pact. Here we have Kharkiv, and the Black Sea Agreement told that the Russians can have their fleet in Crimea, and for so many soldiers, we get more gas or something along those lines, right? And yeah, that is how the agreement was set into stone until 2014, where we had a coup in Kiev. We just saw Victoria Nuland and Jeffrey Pyatt, and basically they broke up the country, such as the river shows, right? In Odessa, we have a NATO operation, French, English, and other mercenaries go to Odessa and then either attack Crimea or go to the east of Ukraine to ward off the Russians. But when you have Crimea, you have control over the Black Sea, right? Now, if we look at the elections in Romania, well, they were postponed. Yeah, they were postponed because you have Georgescu basically saying, my point of view, we have to be neutral and we don't need to choose the EU. We don't need to choose Russia. We can do deals with them, that's okay, but we don't need to be part of the Russian Federation nor the EU. That is what Georgescu's stance is, right? And yeah, the EU and NATO said, nope, there's Russian influence in this election, and we need to stop these elections, and we need to do it again. So the people in Romania are fed up with it, right? They choose Georgescu, and we're going to show some images of demonstrations in Romania.
9 people inside, they decide instead of 19 million what they have to do. In other words, they cancel the second round and they said that everything was not correct in the first round. Even that exactly the system before, they said this is correct. So this doesn't mean that we assist to a coup d'etat.
Is Romania in the midst of a coup right now?
And for this reason I said, what is happening now in Romania, and there's no reaction from abroad, especially from the United States. They don't understand what is going on here, because if they use Romania as a door for war, what would be next?
They didn't expect that to happen. That was an accident, I suppose.
Absolutely an accident.
Not part of their game plan.
Was the first time of the oligarchy system was what happened, an accident. We don't need war. This is my point.
What will the implications of Romania be if the NATO basis goes to completion? So this NATO base, just to be clear, the biggest NATO base ever to be built in Europe, is going to be constructed to conduct a major offensive into Russia.
Exactly, this is the word, offensive, which is wrong way. And we cannot accept this. Simple as that. Because it's not our business. It's not our war again. We ask for help for the democratic institutions, and we want to protect our life, our family, our nation for these things which will happen, which is today we discuss about the war between God and evil. Thank you.
But we're not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in heavenly places.
We are fighting these evil hell spawns, right? We're showing the truth. We're showing the truth on what's happening. They want to build a NATO base in Romania to basically stop Russia from having control over Crimea, right? This is what's happening. And we also saw the elections in Georgia. We cover that. To give what happened in a nutshell, we have a political party named the Georgian Dream. Now, Georgian Dream is a neutral party. They don't want to be part of the EU, and they don't want to be part of Russia. Now, they won the elections. And many people in Georgia want to join the EU, and they had lots of demonstrations in Tbilisi saying the government is not legal and this and that. We had a president who didn't want to step down, and she eventually did. And the Georgian Dream is in parliament now. And within the population of Georgia, you have three streams of thought. Well, basically four, but three main streams of thought. Right. The fourth one I'm going to explain. Now, you have the people who want to join the EU, who did the demonstrations in Tbilisi. You had the people who want to stay neutral, and you have the people who want to join the Russian Federation, which mainly are in South Ossetia, which is over here, a region within Georgia. Now, there's another region within Georgia who says, we don't want to be part of Georgia, we don't want to be part of the EU, we don't want to be part of Russia, which is this area here, where you see the dotted lines. And that's the fourth train of thought, right? But that's not really prevalent in Georgia. So just gave that in a nutshell. We talked about Azerbaijan, the pipelines and such. So we're giving geopolitics. And yeah, very, very interesting to see how the world evolves and such. So going back to the energy crisis, right? In 2014, we remember this because a hospital was bombed for the very first time live on TV. And in 2014, we had the Gaza intervention. Yeah, times do not change. But yeah, this happened in 2014. The underlying current was that Hamas basically kidnapped some students and executed them. And Israel says, we're going to strike back. Hamas, you know, that terror organization that we made to substitute the PLO. Yeah, that Hamas, we're going to strike back. So they did in the Gaza Strip, which is basically an open prison. Everything is boarded off, right? You have a very big fence and stuff like that. People cannot go in or out of the Gaza Strip. And we're talking about millions of people, right? Millions of people. So, 2014, I've already explained the underlying current, right? The Israeli students that were kidnapped, this and that. But that was a cover, right, for Palestinian gas. There you go. IDF's Gaza assault is to control Palestinian gas, avert Israeli energy crisis. As was said before, many wars are waged because of the resources and stuff like that. So they use Hamas as a cover to intervene in certain areas. Now we know that. You also see the same with the Taliban. Where did that come from? The Mujahideen. Yeah, we remember that, right? Zbigniew Brzezinski. So you have a General Yalom, and he was doing an operation cast lead or something like that, right? And Yalom's concerns focused on the 1.4 trillion cubic feet of natural gas discovered in 2000 off the Gaza coast, valued at $4 billion. That also means you have an export product, and then you can enrich your country even more. You know, that was the perspective of Israel. Oh, those Palestinians. Oh, bad people. Bad. They do not deserve to live. Yeah. This is the Israeli thought, right? We are superior. This is our land. You're right. You're right. You know, we want peace. That's what we want, right? And we know the whole history of what happened at Palestine and the English mandate, and you know, United Nations declaring Tel Aviv as Israel and such. We know the background. We know. It's very, very sad to see. You know, very, very sad to see. You know, we know that most people who call themselves Israelis are basically people from Eastern Europe and other parts of the globe, right? You even have Americans living there, you know? So it's a very, very odd world that we live in. But we know what's going on. But there are things that, you know, we're still looking at and researching and stuff like that, such as the missing people in the United States, right? Our friend Dave Politis has a new video talking about a certain case in Oregon, Cascades, Blue River. Very interesting case. This female was naked at a construction site, you know, and very odd story, but we're going to listen to this here. You can explain it better than I can.
M-E-K-E-N-N-A. The last name's R-E-I-L-E-Y. McKenna Riley. And the title of it is SLP-184, a mock therapy session. What she does is she sits down with a young person and she's working on speech. The way she worked with this person was super impressive. Super impressive. And I watched that. And then I said, you know what? I'm intrigued now. Well, she had a sister named Bevan Stepp who lived in Cumberland County, Pennsylvania. Remember I told you a long time ago, I have not proved it yet, but it's always in the back of my mind, that the location where people were raised or lived a majority of their time in their life plays a role in these disappearances. Cumberland County, PA, lots of weird things go on there. Cleveland, Ohio, lots of weird things go on there. Great Lakes, Well, McKenna lived in a small town in the middle of the Cascades in Oregon called Blue River on the Mackenzie River. Her family knew her to be a gifted artist and 100% committed to her dog, Hilo. Wherever she went, Hilo went. Now, she disappeared, remember I said, on April 5th. The last text message that her sister, Bevan, received from her was, it said, "I hope you have a great day. Let's talk soon. I need to come back ASAP to visit." Not a lot of context around the message, but it's what it was. This incident starts April 5th, 2023. It starts very strange. McKenna was a speech teacher. She did have an older meaning back months in her life, she did have a boyfriend that she got a temporary court order to stay away from her. Whatever that means, I don't know. It came up in the records and the deputies' talks. But on April 5th, McKenna drove herself to a construction site in that small city where she lived. Now maybe it'll help you if I show you this. This is the Mackenzie River, follows Highway 126. This is a small town of Blue River. West of here, quite a ways, is Eugene, Oregon. This area down in here, one of the strangest disappearances I've ever chronicled over an Oregon professor that disappeared, never found. So, McKenna drives herself to this construction site in her town. She gets out of her car, she's naked, and she's walking sort of aimlessly through this site. Well, the construction workers call the Lane County Sheriffs because they know something's wrong. Well, 2 deputies get dispatched. Not long after that, they arrive, they see McKenna, and they give her something to wear, and they start to question her. Now, when deputies are questioning somebody like this, simultaneously you're looking for multiple things. First of all, your eyes, your pupils, will tell police what you're under the influence of. As an example, if your pupils, if it's at nighttime and your pupils are really small, the first thing I always thought about was heroin. Under the influence of heroin. Could be fentanyl, could be something opiate related. Pupils are real dilated, could be a lot of things. Coke, meth, barbiturates. There's a lot of things that cause your pupils to dilate. But as they're talking to her, this is what's going through their mind. Obviously, something's wrong. Nobody walks around in the daytime around a construction site of men naked. They're also trying to assess her mental state. And McKenna told deputies that she was scared with no safe place to go. And so the deputies are trying to understand what she meant. Now, as you assess somebody's mental condition, I read a lot of comments on various links of people saying, oh, the deputies just should have taken her into custody for her mental health. Not so easy, folks. No. These are the same people that if they would have taken her into custody, they would have said, oh, you violated her rights. It's a very clear line and distinction if you're going to put somebody on an emergency mental health hold. First of all, criteria 1, they're a danger to themselves. They tried to commit suicide, they're threatening to commit suicide, threatening to do harm to themselves in some way. Criteria number 2, they're a threat to somebody else in the community, threat to others. If they don't meet that criteria, that dog don't hunt. If she's walking around in the outdoors naked and she doesn't say that she's suicidal or she wants to hurt herself or she's looking for somebody to hurt, you'd be very hard pressed to take her in under a forced mental hold. And that's what it is. It's forced. In California, you could hold somebody 72 hours under a forced mental hold, and then they have to be released unless that institution goes to court and says they need more time with this person. And very rarely does that happen. So all the comments out there I read about, oh, they just should have taken her. I don't think so. Not unless she exhibited those signs. Well, make a long story short, the deputies assess McKenna and believe that she's having some kind of mental health issue, but nothing that meets the criteria of a mental health hold. So they convince her to get back in her car and drive home and recover. And they last see her driving away alone in her car towards her house. Now, if she was incapacitated because of drugs or alcohol, it would have been illegal for those deputies to allow her to drive home. And I don't think they would have allowed her to do it. At the minimum, if there were even questions about that, I think they would have put her in their car and driven her home. But that wasn't the assessment. Now, that same night, April 5th, neighbors of McKenna hear her car drive up into her driveway. And they heard what they thought 2 car doors closing. They never see her or anybody in the car. April 6th, the following day, some friends of McKenna try to get a hold of her. Her family tries to get a hold of her. Nobody can get a hold of her. Eventually, somebody in the neighborhood, friend, calls the Lane County deputies to respond to her home to do a welfare check. See if she is home. And if not, let's find her. So the deputies get there and they decide that they're going to get inside the house. And what they find is pretty strange. Again, McKenna, 40 years old, speech teacher. So her car's in the driveway, and her constant companion, Hilo, was inside the house. Also in the house were new groceries that she had bought the previous night. So when she came in from her car, she brought groceries in. So possibly the second door hearing closed is she had groceries in the back seat of her car. Opened the door, got the groceries out, and that would account for 2 car doors slamming or closing. Deputies also found her wallet, her purse, her car keys. They searched the house multiple times. She was not home. They contacted McKenna's family, and eventually her brother and her sister decided to fly out. Out of character, completely makes no sense, but something happened on the 5th. Nothing that they found in the house made any sense. She didn't go anywhere without Hilo. Now, subsequent to what they didn't find her, Lane County deputies, along with friends and family, searched her home, searched her backyard at least 3 times. And then they set up a massive search where they brought in canine units, drones, 4x4s, ground pounders, and they worked the area behind her house in the woods. And there was a lot of woods back there. And in the woods behind her home, how far behind was it said, they find a bag with McKenna's clothes. What? What's that about? Now, it was never explained if those were the clothes she was wearing when she left the house. Did she take them off and put them in the bag, or are these extra clothes? It was never made clear. So they kept searching, they didn't find anything else. Lane County deputies gave occasional updates. Her sister, Bevan, came out with her brother multiple times. And then the family, after weeks not hearing anything, they posted a $20,000 reward. Now, 4 months after McKenna vanished, August 12th, 2023, 2 kayakers were on the Blue River Reservoir about a mile the way the crow flies from McKenna's home. As they're kayaking along, they think they see a body in the water. So they call Lane County deputies, they respond, and they recover a female's body. Here's Blue River, here's the reservoir. Blue River, reservoir. Distance, walking a straight line, about a mile. Through pretty thick woods. Now, if you're a reader of Missing 411, A Sobering Coincidence, your mind is starting to kick into gear. So her body, a body of a female, is taken out of the water on the 12th. On the 14th, the state medical examiner for the state of Oregon IDs the body as McKenna's. And they list the cause of death as freshwater drowning. And they stated that there was no foul play involved. Every time a coroner says that, I'm always astounded. Always. I mean, that's such an assertive thing to say. Whatever. I'll get to more of that later. Well, McKenna's family didn't believe it. As would any family. I mean, why would your family member leave their best friend behind at home, take off, have their clothes behind in the woods, and then why would you jump in the water? Everything in your body would fight to stay afloat. More of that later. The coroner's report said there was some damage to the body caused by turtles. That's interesting. They never said what it was. That's all that it said in the press. Well, McKenna's family had a little bit of money, and they paid for a second autopsy. If you know anybody that's going through exactly something similar to this, you get a second autopsy if you can afford it. Well, they also hired a private investigator. The private investigator contacted state fish and game biologists in Oregon and showed them what the coroner wrote about this damage at Blue River Reservoir. And the biologist said, well, that's interesting because there are no turtles in that reservoir. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Retraction time. But I never heard any retraction coming or said. Now let's go through this. The coroner on the second autopsy said the lungs were not as saturated or congested as you'd expect to see in a drowning. It's a nice way of saying I don't see how a drowning happened in this instance. Remember, local reports for local consumptions. I've told you this before. New York PD came up with that. Specific detective, Gannon, smart man. Now, Lane County had to believe what the coroner said. This is just common drowning. But friends, you can't be an idiot here. You have to ask yourself, how did McKenna get in the water? Oh yeah, Dave, that's kind of important, isn't it? Yeah. So did you walk through the woods to the reservoir? Was she originally headed that way when she walked out of her house?
What is the underlying story? What happened to McKenna? It's a very, very sad thing to see. And mysterious cases like these always intrigue RHTVLive. We're not only giving geopolitics, we also think of the lost and found. Strange cases such as these are very, very odd, to say the least. Why would you end up naked on a construction site and finding McKenna in the river? What? She wanted to skinny dip or something? I don't know. Many question marks on this case, right? But we're keeping an eye on this case in the hope that someone solves the case, right? We have many, many missing people in Canada and America. That's why CanAm, right? Canada America Missing Project. And I don't know Dave Paulides personally. I would love to meet him though. He's a very sincere guy, and he cares about the people, and yeah, that is something to tell for. So there's also international cases, such as here in Switzerland, and other cases. Very interesting to see. Channel to watch, Canada Missing Project. We also think of the missing people, and yeah. We don't only look at geopolitical stuff, we also look at the missing people. And let's see what else we got here. We have the Black Pill Journal. This is part 2. There's a lot happening in the Netherlands. And we have a reporter who was imprisoned for 30 months. It's 2.5 years, somewhat. And there were claims against this guy, and he's a conspiracy wacko, and this and that. This is the government basically criminalizing journalism, right? So Michakat has no real media. Over here in the Netherlands, they say, you're crazy. You won't get a platform on the mainstream media. So there's an alternative media, and we're part of that, RHTVLive. But we give geopolitics, and yeah, there's also the Black Pill Journal for the Dutch audience. Let's see what else we got here. There's so much. Wait a minute, they're race swapping Batman? Really? Oh man. Yeah. That also happened in the comics. That we know. Let's see what O'Keefe Media Group says. Right? We love O'Keefe Media Group. And there we have James O'Keefe, who used to be part of the other project, right? And they kicked him out. So he has his own media group now. It used to be Project Veritas, but he was kicked out. And now he has his own media group doing his thing, exposing the corruption in America. Very interesting. Let's see what we got here. Behind the scenes, James O'Keefe. This is interesting. Former DHS Secretary.
So I'm here in Washington, D.C. We're outside this oyster restaurant. We're about to confront Robert Silvers, the undersecretary under the Biden administration, caught on hidden camera talking about Biden's mental cognitive decline. I'm dressed in a tux. I came from a gala. Seriously, I'm going to confront this guy, and then I'm going to go back to the gala. Come with me. Let's see what he says. Robert?
Yeah.
Robert Silvers?
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan.
Hey.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah. My name's James.
Hi, James.
James O'Keefe.
James O'Keefe.
Yeah, the undercover reporter.
Oh, hi.
The investigative reporter. I think that you were supposed to meet with my colleague tonight. And this is you on video, is it not?
It's a really traumatic moment. It was more, I would say, like a crushing blow. I don't really want to talk about it.
You don't want to
meet.
You hear that? It's a crushing blow. Now, name me one big blue state in the U.S., right? Name me one. Wouldn't that be like California? Even I know this as a Dutch person. You know, we have Gavin Newsom in California, and he's a Democrat. You know, so, yeah. Wait, here we go.
You don't want to talk about what? Thank you for what you told to the American people. This is you on video, right? You talked about Biden's cognitive decline as the undersecretary of... what is it? What are you undersecretary of? The only time I actually come to the nation's capital is actually to confront people like you. So this is you on video. And you are talking all about Biden, your boss, Joe Biden.
I don't know,
That's you on video talking about it.
what medically it is, the amount of documentation he has degraded faculties. What it is like with so many other people, like meetings or
So I just gotta ask you a question. Why not be honest about what to the American people about the things that you told our reporter We're being kicked out here.
We love you, James O'Keefe. Keep on pushing, right? There's so much corruption going on in the U.S. It's a clown's world. And Mark Dice describes it perfectly. There we go. Our friend in California, right? He describes it perfectly. It's way worse than we thought. Here we go.
As always, when you start looking into these things, the fire department is far more woke than anybody could have possibly imagined. By now you've heard that the LA City Council appointed the first female and lesbian fire chief, who then made it her top priority to hire more women to increase the diversity, because firefighting was mostly white and male, and a California program aimed to change that. Meet the assistant fire chief, who's also, just coincidentally, a lesbian as well, a black lesbian for triple the diversity.
You want to see somebody that responds to your house, your emergency, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, that looks like you. It gives that person a little bit more ease, knowing that somebody might understand their situation better.
Of course, because in the backwards world of liberalism, if a black person calls 911 and needs a police officer, an ambulance, or a fire truck, then it's best to send some black police officers, EMTs, or firefighters so that they're more comfortable with them coming to rescue them. Would you like to share some of the concerns that other people have expressed because you're a woman firefighter, sir? I mean, ma'am?
Strong enough to do this, or couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
This person is victim blaming the very people who they dedicated their life to supposedly protecting. And like all diversity hires, this person, Christine Larson, isn't focused on actually doing the job that they were tasked to do. It's to bring more misery to the department by bringing in more diversity hires.
I want to reach down and bring you up. And that's kind of something that stuck with me to this day.
Part of that work means speaking up for those who can't. Over the last few years, LAFD has dealt with a fair share of controversy, and Larson not afraid to sound the alarm.
I chose to speak out, pretty much by myself.
To complain that the department is run by a bunch of white men.
About the issues of sexism and racism within my department.
Wait a minute. You go to your job as a female in a male-dominated area, right? And you insert yourself there, and you say there are too many males. What? Really? Really? It's like, oh my God. This is very, very sad, you know. This is basically feminism on steroids. You have a female, a lesbian female. I don't care about the sexual orientation. You know, you have a female saying, I want to be a firefighter. Yeah, okay, if that's your dream, okay. You know, but you have to accept that there are more males as firefighters than females. You know, you don't insert yourself in a male dominant area and say, I want this, I want that. No. You know, you have all these firefighters trying to put out the fire, and you're there saying, yeah, that's your own fault. You burning your own house. And yeah, I'm going to look here. I'm going to see if the fire hydrants are diverse enough, if they have rainbow colors and stuff like that. It's like, what the hell are you doing? The whole city is on fire, and you're looking at fire hydrants that they have like rainbow colors. What the hell? Gavin Newsom, you got to go, man. You got to go. Trump said it, right? Once. He said, everything that's woke goes broke. And we see it in California.
And the need for change.
The LA Fire Department is basically run by a lesbian mafia. This woman, Christina Kepner, is another one of the top officials there. And this seems like a parody, but this article is actually serious from a Rainbow News website. Amid the Palisades fire, Los Angeles' first LGBTQ+ fire chief is proving lesbians get it done. Oh, they're getting it done all right. They're destroying the city. Check my previous video yesterday if you missed it, where I detail how the local authorities and state authorities, Gavin Newsom, had neglected all of the dry brush and why the water ran out. But leave it to the Democrats like Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal to just blame climate change and say that corporations got us into this mess. But even they can't escape the devastating reality of climate change. And yesterday, undoubtedly, a DEI hire who are always incompetent, DEI, Democrats employing idiots, sent out an emergency alert to the entire county of LA, to every single person's cell phone who lives in Los Angeles County, telling them that they need to evacuate. That would be millions and millions and millions of people. Thankfully, at least somebody did catch the mistake, and then they sent a follow-up message saying that that was an error. And then they clarified it was specific regions of the city. Here's the mayor, who's not a DEI hire because she was elected, but really a reflection of the moronic mindset that dominates the city of Los Angeles.
Right now, if you need help, emergency information, resources, and shelter is available. All of this can be found at URL. Los Angeles, together is how we will get through this.
Wait.
Through the heroicism.
Wait. You heard her correctly. She just pulled a Ron Burgundy and didn't even catch herself. She just kept on reading because obviously the scriptwriter forgot to put the website in the script. It just had the placeholder of URL in there, which she then just read verbatim as if there was nothing unusual about it. She's the one who cut.
Really? Oh, when you have problems, you go to URL. What? URL? Yeah. Then HTTP, then yeah, it's supposed to be a website, right? You know, it's like, what the hell? You go to URL, oh my God, really? Really? And this is like the higher ups over there? Oh my God, really? And the odd thing is, right, when you're at the coast, such as the Palisades, we're going to put that on the map. Here we go. There we have the Palisades. You're near an ocean, and you're telling me that you don't not have enough water. No, you don't have enough water to fight off the fires. What, really? Really? I hope that actors, you know, that have a lot of money, even though they don't have a house anymore, they do have a bank account, right? I hope they sue Gavin Newsom. I hope that happens. I really do. You know, sue the guy. Go to the courts, right? You knew that there was dry bushes and such, you know. Instead of removing that, as you should, Mr. Gavin Newsom, instead of removing that, no, just leave it there. And who knows, maybe there's a wacko trying to, you know, put on a fire. We've shown the images. Climate change arrested. Yeah, for the people who've missed it, we're going to show it again, right? Oh, climate change. Oh, climate change. Yeah, climate change my ass. It's a frame of consensus. All these wacky green people say that there's something wrong with the planet, too much CO2 and whatever else. But here we have climate change in action. You have someone lighting the place on fire, right? And yeah, that's your climate change. You see, they're doing this because Donald Trump came into power, you know, and they're doing everything they can to, you know, to make it hard for Donald Trump in America and also external, right? Ukraine. I mean, Biden is still funding Ukraine, you know, and this is all happening. This is just to make it harder for Donald Trump, right? Climate change in action. Here we go.
I think you meant that I think you meant that.
Now, what do you see here? Right, you see a small fire. I hope to put it out quickly, but yeah, you also see no fire anywhere else, right? So someone got arrested for arson. There you go. One crazy lefty loony that says, "Oh, Donald Trump is bad. He's a fascist." Blah 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 blah. And they're making it hard for Trump. That is their goal: destabilization of California and the rest of the United States. Can you still stay united with all these green wacky people who stick themselves to the road with super glue and stuff like that? It's not normal. Throw these people in jail for about 2 years. Then they'll learn. Or maybe even longer. Who knows? Probation or something like that, right? So invest in that. These people are psychologically deranged. These people need psychological help, and have compassion for these people, because these people don't know what planet they're living on, they're basically tools and fools who are destroying California. And maybe even Gavin Newsom is using this as a crisis. Who knows? But yeah, fire Gavin Newsom. Or Mel Gibson, if you're listening. I hope you are. I'll send it to you. I'll send this program to you. Anyway, sue Gavin Newsom. Sue him. So, Mel Gibson. There we go. You got lots of Mel Gibsons. Is this the profile page? I hope it is, because we're going to send it right over here. I'm going to respond to one of these comments, because we showed Mel Gibson talking about California. So, yeah, there's so much to talk about, so much to talk about. But we need to realize that there are many layers to the system, right? And Trump, in his first term of office, he basically looked at America, right, as the country itself. And, internal struggles, and the border wall was not finished and stuff like that. It's all because of the Democrats, right? So Trump, in his first term of office, only looked at the United States. He didn't really get involved in the Panama Canal or Canada or Greenland, for that matter, you know. But now Trump had a speech about Greenland and Canada, and we're going to look it up. Now, I know many Canadians are proud of their country, right? And I know that the Canadians don't, in the majority, don't want to be American. They deem themselves as Canadian. But you need to understand, right, that there's a higher goal. A higher goal. There's always an intention. Now, what is that higher goal, right? Well, the world government consists of regional powers, such as the EU. It's a consolidation of power, right? Brussels decides for the Netherlands, Germany, and all that. Right? That's where the power is concentrated. Now, the EU also had a plan of expansion with the North American Union, the South American Union, the African Union, you know, the Asian Pacific Union, and all that. So, and there is something called the North American Union, which is a consolidation of America, Canada, and Mexico, right? And it's deemed as a conspiracy theory, but Trump tweaked it a bit. Here we have the North American Union. Trump tweaked it a bit and said, nope, we don't need Mexico. No, come on, they don't have an economy. You know, we need Greenland. But wait a minute, isn't Greenland part of Denmark? I hear you ask yourself, well, not really. They are independent, even though the cash flow comes from Denmark. Denmark supports Greenland in that fashion, you know. So Wikipedia says it's a conspiracy theory, but history proves with the European Union that, you know, America has the same blueprint on the table, which consists of America, Canada, and Greenland, right? So it's not a conspiracy theory. Nope. Even though there's a whole article proclaiming it is, right? Here we have the Amero, which is the currency, the new currency. We have the Euro, and you guys over there have the Amero under the North American Union. You know? So it's an economic power structure that is deemed to fail. What we need is sovereign states and, you know, having their own economy and resources, outsourcing towards other countries. So, yeah, you know, provide jobs within that country and people will be happy, right? So, let's see what Miss Trip and Fall says. No water in reservoir, all by design. Exactly. You know, they want to you know, make it hard for Trump for his new term in office. And yeah, these are wacky people that we are dealing with, right? the minions of the globalists. Now, the North American Union is also an idea of the globalists. This is why they're called globalists. They think globally, not nationally, not in a country, no, globally. So Donald Trump tweaked that idea a bit, and yeah, it's not theoretical anymore. And what concerns the Panama Canal is also very interesting. Many people don't know that the Panama Canal was made by the United States. It cost many, many lives. And let's see if we can find a documentary about the Panama Canal. Here we go.
Exclusive corporate funding for American Experience is provided by Liberty Mutual. Major funding for American Experience is made possible by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation. Funding for this program is provided by the National Endowment for the Humanities. Additional funding by the Arthur Vining Davis Foundations. American Experience is also made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
It's been called one of the 7 wonders of the modern world. A man-made waterway, 50 miles long, that forever altered the face of the earth.
The Panama Canal exceeded any country's capacity. If in 1904 you asked me to put money, I would have said, no, it cannot be built. Nobody knew how this was going to be done.
The geographic location of Panama, the Isthmus of Panama, has always been coveted as a way of making the oceans meet. With the building of the Panama Canal, the realization of a dream became an expression of the power, the strength, the might of a growing nation.
For nearly 100 years, the Panama Canal has stood for the triumph of technology over nature. But when it was built at the dawn of the 20th century, it was simply an audacious gamble, a colossal engineering project, the likes of which the world had never seen.
It's a story of inspiration. It's a story of humanity.
Americans love to be proud of themselves. History has never seen that before. Oh, yeah, they have. Yeah, they have. We have the Suez Canal. The Suez Canal. So, and we're going to put that on the map. Wait, Suez Canal. There we go. And here we have the Suez Canal, right? Very, very interesting geographical location because this happened prior to World War I, and the English and French basically built the Suez Canal, and that was the biggest project back then. And America said, well, my my dick is bigger than yours. We can do it better. And yeah, we have the Panama Canal, right? So going back to the documentary, here we go.
What man can endure with the pick and shovel to dig the canal?
It used science and engineering and government to improve the country and really improve the world. But it has a dark side as well. It is also a symbol of arrogance, authority, and power.
The canal really announced the United States as the leading country in the world. It demonstrated an extraordinary will and determination. They had succeeded in conquering nature as no one had ever done before.
In early July 1905, an American steamship made its way towards the Isthmus of Panama, the narrow ribbon of land between North and South America and the two largest oceans in the world. Among the passengers on board was Jan van Hardenveld, a 30-year-old engineer from Wyoming. He'd read in the newspaper about a new government project, an ambitious plan to link the Atlantic and the Pacific with a canal, and he was determined to be part of it. A Dutchman by birth, Jan was a newly minted citizen of the United States and a fierce champion of his adopted country. In America, he liked to say, anything is possible. The building of the Panama Canal would be no exception.
Back then, America had a dream, right? They had a dream. Not only to shape a country such as Panama that used to belong to Colombia, right, for a large part, but you know, because of the canal, there is Panama. That was their first hold on South America or Middle America, you know, south from Mexico. So, and after that, we had a lot of interventions in countries. You know, there's a book, War's a Racket by Smedley Butler. We remember him, right? So, this was the first step for Pax Americana, right? And first dominance over the Americas with Panama, you know.
A heavy suitcase in my hand, the sweat rolling down my face. I stumbled along the wet, slippery track, which I had been told to follow until I found a place to turn off. In the deep darkness, I seemed to have walked miles, and I never dreamed there could be such unearthly noises. To me, they sounded like the howling of demons. Well, I decided that turning back looked almost as hard as going on. So here I am.
Jan van Hardenveld was just one of hundreds of young Americans now living on the Isthmus of Panama. They'd been arriving for months from San Diego, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Charlotte, former railroad engineers and file clerks, and recent college graduates, all of them eager.
A very interesting documentary. I advise you to watch this. The World of Knowledge. Very interesting. I see a comment here from a friend. Ik heb net aandacht voor de Demmingzaak gevraagd bij Lonneke Engel in een comment bij haar. So the Netherlands is a cesspool of corruption. We used to have the people in higher ups of the Department of Justice. There was this General Secretary of Justice named Joris Demming, who went to Turkey and couldn't hold his pants up and got arrested there. And other places he's been, and also in the Netherlands, but you're not allowed to talk about that. But we talk about it, right? We talk about it. Wij hebben het erover. Over Demming, we zijn het niet vergeten. So, you know, there's a lot more to talk about. As I've said before, Trump wants Greenland and Canada. Now, let's look upon his remarks on what he said.
So thank you all for coming. We'll take a couple of questions. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
President, thank you. Wanted to touch on the world on fire that you mentioned, but let's start, if we could, with your references to Greenland and the Panama Canal, so forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't either of those two. But I can say this. We need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that you'll have to do something. Look, the Panama Canal is vital to our country. It's being operated by China. China. And we gave the Panama Canal to Panama. We didn't give it to China. And they've abused it. They've abused that gift. It should have never been made, by the way. Giving the Panama Canal is why Jimmy Carter lost the election, in my opinion, more so maybe than the hostages. The hostages were a big deal. But if you remember, and nobody wants to talk about the Panama Canal now because, you know, it's inappropriate, I guess, but because it's a bad part of the Carter legacy. But he was a good man. Look, he was a good man. I knew him a little bit, and he was a very fine person, but that was a big mistake. Giving the Panama Canal to Panama was a very big mistake. We lost 38.
Wait a minute, Mr. Trump. Wait a minute. Carter didn't only do that, right? We know Zbigniew Brzezinski was under Carter, and he was in Pakistan making the Mujahideen to ward off the Russians in Afghanistan. We know about that. That happened under President Carter, right? I believe the Iran-Contra, no, that's later, yeah. So, that happened. So, Mr. Trump, if you're listening, you need to accurately know the history of the United States. And we are getting into that because Tucker Carlson had a very interesting talk with Oliver Stone and his co-producer, I forgot his name. But anyway, I'm going to take a look at this.
1,000 people. It cost us the equivalent of $1 trillion, maybe more than that. Probably the most expensive, they say.
Oh, and Mr. Trump, as you've seen, we do talk about the Panama Canal.
It was the most expensive structure, if we call it a structure, which I guess you can, ever built. And giving that away was a horrible thing. And I believe that's why Jimmy Carter lost the election, even more so than the hostages. Those two things.
If I could just follow up on Ukraine and Iran, the two negotiations
Now you're talking about the Iranian hostages, that crisis, that you, well, not you, but the U.S. Basically made themselves by installing the Shah, and going into the rules of Iranians, basically overthrowing a president, an elected president. And this is how the Iranian Revolution started, right? Under the Shah, Western powers were in Iran, and gas and oil was supplied for warfare in the East and stuff like that. So, and people of Iran said, no, we don't want to supply oil and gas to wage wars in the East. No, we don't want that. So they had a revolution. They overthrew the Shah. Now, a religious faction took power in Iran, and the Ayatollah Khomeini, and this is a bit of the background of Iran. Now, I'm no CIA agent, but I know my history, right? So, I believe the name was Mossadegh. We'll look it up.
You'll be heading into. On Ukraine, you said just before it's a lot more complicated now.
Much more complicated.
Do you believe?
Because it would have never started.
Right, but it has started. You've
well,
got,
not only started, the cities are largely knocked down.
So
you've
got
like
what you've got. At this point, to hold on to leverage in dealing with President Putin, would you make a commitment to the Ukrainians that you will keep supporting them during the negotiations?
Well, I wouldn't tell you if that were the
would
case.
you make a commitment to provide a security guarantee if they do enter into an armistice or a ceasefire along the lines that the French and the Germans?
So, a big part of the problem was Russia for many, many years, long before Putin said you could never have NATO involved with Ukraine. Now, they've said that. That's been like written in stone. And somewhere along the line, Biden said, no, they should be able to join NATO. Well, then Russia has somebody right on their doorstep, and I could understand their feeling about that. But
so we gave the underlying current of Ukraine, right? We explained it. And Ukraine is being torn into two parts. You guys should be neutral. No? Mr. Trump, if you want to negotiate, Ukraine is broke. Okay? It's a broke country. They don't have any money. They're going everywhere within the EU. Zelensky all over the planet, jet setting there and there and there and there, just to get money. You see, Zelensky is buying sports cars and enriching himself and giving the soldier nothing, no preparement. People are picked off the streets. And I'm not making this up, Mr. Trump. This is happening. Right? This is really happening. We're just giving, a geopolitical analysis on what's going on. We haven't even talked about Sudan yet, or Pakistan, Afghanistan. We touched upon it in the last week, right? So you need to understand, Mr. Trump, you are being lied to. They're using the frame of consensus that Russia is the enemy. No, they're not. They're not the enemy. The enemy are the unelected bureaucrats that, try to wage war everywhere they can. That is the New World Order, right? That is the globalists. That is Bohemian Grove, for example, right? They all come together and make these weird deals, such as the Rand Corporation. We know about the Manhattan Project. We know that the Manhattan Project was cooked up at the Bohemian Grove, and the Rand Corporation was involved. We know. So, Mr. Trump, you need to know the history, right? You're being lied to by the media, and they're using the frame of consensus. They've been using this ever since 9/11. All these so-called homegrown terrorists and stuff like that, the Liberty City 7. We remember. They use that frame, these cells, and basically to fabricate a terrorist attack. Right? We know. And you've been isolated without even knowing what's going on. America says the enemy's over there. They're in Afghanistan. No, wait. They're in Iraq. No, wait. They're in Libya. Wait. Not Libya. No, Syria. This is happening. So the military-industrial complex is too big, right, to handle. And as I've said before, Tucker Carlson talked to Oliver Stone, and very, very interesting history that Oliver Stone gives. So we're going to skip the intro.
You think accounts for, big picture, the hostility of NATO and Europe to Russia? What is that?
It's got to be education. It's got to be propaganda. They believe these things. The woman who runs the EU, Ursula, she constantly says these things that are ignorant of what's happened in the last 20, 30 years. They're ignorant of what happened in the 90s in Russia. They're not taking this into account. I talked to Macron at one point, and he was a very reasonable man. I thought he was saying things like, we need more nuclear energy in France. Right, great. And now he turns around and he's saying that he's ready to send French troops into Ukraine. The British are the worst. Starmer, this new prime minister, Labour prime minister, you know who he is. He said, yes, 2 days ago, he said, we have to punish Putin to the maximum because he's relentless. That's what he said. We have to punish. So there's an aspect of a personal thing about Putin, like Biden made it personal, saying he's a thug and a murderer. And Starmer saying he has to be punished. Putin has to be punished, not Russia. It's bizarre. We didn't talk like this back when we were mature, back in the 50s, 60s, when we talked about Russia as an enemy because we thought it was adversarial.
Yes.
I disagree with that, but we thought so and we acted as such, but we didn't personally insult Khrushchev or Brezhnev.
Of course.
And here we are insulting them constantly. So Biden, I think, some people say Blinken has taken control of his mind. I don't know, but Anthony Blinken is trained in the Hillary Clinton diplomatic school. He was for many years. He's been under her wing.
Yes.
So is I gather Jake Sullivan.
Diplomatic is a little strong. By diplomacy, it's just regime change. Kill the leader you disagree with.
Diplomacy is a dirty word now in the United States.
Okay.
But Peter, I'm interested in your perspective. Like, why do you think the entire United States, from a position of greater weakness, has, with Europe, pivoted against Russia of all the potential enemies? Why Russia?
What else is new?
Right.
I mean, we've been going after Russia since 1917. We're mad at them. Well, in World War I, Lenin and Trotsky pulled Russia out of the alliance and had the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk,
yes,
where they gave away a massive amount of Russia to Germany in order to get peace at that point. And what does the United States do with the Brits and the Japanese and others? We send troops into the Soviet Union in 1918. There were 15,000 American troops there. And Churchill wanted to overthrow the new Soviet government. He said we should strangle Bolshevism in the cradle. So this goes way back to them. We didn't even recognize the Soviet Union until Roosevelt was in power in 1933. So, and then during the war, they became our ally.
Yes.
And in fact, they were the ones who won the war in Europe.
Correct.
When I ask my students who won the war in Europe, people grow up believing that the Americans won the war in Europe.
It's not true. You see, it's not true. If we go back in history, people always remember Normandy, right? And basically, there was a race on who was going to occupy Berlin, right? You had the Normandy landing. Normandy. So they landed here on the beaches, and they went to Berlin. First, they freed Paris, right? And one legion went to Berlin, and one other legion freed Belgium and the Netherlands, right? It's also the Canadians that did that. We love Canada. We love Canada. We just hate the way Canada functions now. Freezing bank accounts, really? Trudeau, when you go, I hope your bank account will be frozen. But anyway, it was a race between two superpowers who would get Berlin first. And yeah, the Russians were there first. So there's also a famous picture of the USSR flag in Berlin. Now, you may say I'm a conspiracy theorist. Nope, I'm not. I'm not. Here we go. Raising a flag over the Reichstag, right? Raising a flag over the Reichstag, Russian. My Russian is very bad. Victory banner over the Reichstag, and it was the Soviet Union that basically was in Berlin first, right? So Americans are not taught this, Europe is far away. Canadians the same. Europe is far away. Who cares about Europe? We are the best. We are the best. No, you're not. You're just like us, human beings, and you're not exceptional. You guys used to have a dream, right? Making the Panama Canal, and the steel industry was booming, making cars, and you had a golden age because you had a dream. Now that dream turned into a nightmare after the military-industrial complex took power in the U.S. This is what Eisenhower basically is saying. We've shown the speech many, many times, and we're going to show it again.
A vital element in keeping the peace is our military establishment. Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action, so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction. Our military organization today bears little relation to that known of any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend...
Defense establishment, right? Defense, not offense, not attacking other countries. Is the mic on? Yeah, it's on. So, defense.
On military security alone, more than the net income of all United States corporations. Now, this conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state house, every office of the federal government.
Even spiritual. This is serious stuff we're talking about, right? You know, they take away your spirit. You know, they give medals, and you've done good. Here's a medal. You lost your leg. You're still here. Here's your medal. That's your reward. You know. So they take away your spirit. Right? There are loads of Americans that could have worked in the auto industry or whatever else, in retail or whatever else, you know, to keep the economy stable. But no, you guys needed to invade Iraq and Afghanistan, outsourcing your jobs to Asia and stuff like that. Right? Well, we know.
We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
Whether sought or unsought. Right? Now, what do we know of Wesley Clark? He basically said 7 countries in 5 years. We got like Sudan, Libya, Somalia, Syria, Lebanon. That is a plan of the military-industrial complex, trying to put their foot in the Middle East. Now, Syria is still on their radar. You know, now you have like Al Qaeda cherry or vanilla or name a taste. You know, and you have an American proxy over there in Syria at Palmyra, and they're bombing ISIS. There are still ISIS factions in Syria, and maybe they're also going to overthrow the HTS faction in Damascus. Now, that is a situation right now, but it's very bad in Syria, you know. because of the power vacuum, radicals have taken control, jihadis, and they want a caliphate, same as ISIS basically. But that would be caliphate light, and ISIS would be dark, still a caliphate. So, yeah, and this is all because of the military-industrial complex. They had an idea to overthrow Syria, use proxies to overthrow Assad. And why did they want to overthrow Assad? The underlying current here is energy. Remember that energy? So,
the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.
We are knowledgeable, right? We know in the age of internet, you can look anything up, man, So, and this is a tool that the globalists did not foresee, right? That their own tool is weaponized against themselves, right? So we're going to go back to Oliver Stone, because Oliver Stone has questions on a certain thing that happened in recent U.S. history.
It's not true. It's not even close to the truth. We certainly contributed a lot during World War II, but it's the Soviets. Throughout most of World War II, the U.S. and the Britain were confronting 10 German divisions between the two of us, while the Soviets were confronting more than 200 German divisions on their own. That's why that's why everybody understood what Kennedy says in his great 1963 American University commencement address. What the Soviets suffered in World War II is the equivalent of the entire United States east of Chicago having been wiped out. So you would think that we would be friendly with them afterwards. And Roosevelt had a vision for that. In fact, Roosevelt promised Stalin in May of 1942 that we would open up the Second Front before the end of 1942. He asked Stalin to send over Molotov and a trusted general for that meeting in the White House in 1942. And we made that promise. We don't open up the Second Front till June of 44. And by that point, we had lost all the diplomatic initiative. The Soviets were defeating Germany largely on their own with the support of U.S. materiel. And so they were pushing back the Germans over Central Europe and Eastern Europe. And so the idea that Roosevelt gave away anything at Yalta that the Soviets didn't already have is nonsense. The Soviets had that area. And that's 44, 45. Then unfortunately, Roosevelt died. And even more unfortunately, Truman became president instead of Henry Wallace, which is another story I hope we can get into, because Oliver and I do a lot about that in Untold History. And we argue that had Wallace become president on April 12, 1945, instead of Truman, there would have not only been no atomic bombings in World War II, there would have likely been no Cold War. History could have been so different. But instead, we developed this enmity toward the Soviet Union. Instead of seeing that our allies who suffered so greatly and showing some largesse and generosity, we begin to vilify them after that. And the crackdown that happens in Eastern Europe doesn't happen immediately. That takes place over the next couple of years. It's a much gradual process. They allowed a good degree of democracy in most of Eastern Europe till really the Truman Doctrine in 1947, really. And then after that, then the Cold War is on. But Kennedy was the one who saw it differently. And we can go into that too. Anyway, I'm giving you a lot of history very, very quickly.
None of that is surprising, but none of it, I would say, accounts for the shift after the one that Oliver referred to after 2014 at Maidan.
But it actually starts earlier, because when the Soviet Union collapsed, 1989, 1990, 1991, during that period, we had a chance to actually reach out in a more positive way. But it's in 1990 that Charles Krauthammer, the neocon theorist, says the Soviet Union has collapsed, says this is America's unipolar moment. He says we're the only force in the world that can dictate world events. And he said the unipolar moment is likely to last 30 or 40 years. It was in 1992 that we come out with the defense planning guidance, which is a much more elaborate plan of how we're going to dominate the world. And then 1997, the Project for a New American Century takes shape, and that really fleshes it out much greater. And
we know about the Project for a New American Century. We know about the PNAC documents, and basically wanting a new Pearl Harbor. And what happened after that? 9/11. We know. It's all full circle right now, right? Mujahideen created and broke apart. The Taliban won. Basically was the Mujahideen who won, and it broke apart into three groups: the Northern Alliance, the Taliban, and Al Qaeda. And they were infighting on who gains power, right? And the Taliban won. And it's all full circle now, right? We know Tim Osman, Osama bin Laden, American asset. We know.
And they say in that 2000 report that we're not be able to rebuild our defenses as quickly as we want unless we have a new Pearl Harbor. And they got that in 2001 with 9/11. And so then we invade Afghanistan. Then Krauthammer revisits.
Well, let me ask you to pause. Yeah. Do you think the people who said that we need a new Pearl Harbor in order to rebuild, how do you think they felt about 9/11?
I think they saw it as a tragedy and an opportunity. I think they were.
So you're not suggesting they knew about it?
No, I'm not suggesting that. And Oliver and
I think it's a mystery.
I am suggesting that, Tucker. I am. Because the stocks of the planes that crashed in the building, they were sold on September 10th. Right? What happened on September 10th, right? We had, what's his name, Rumsfeld in the Pentagon saying trillions of dollars have lost. They're searching for those trillions of dollars. Now, where did that plane, in quotation marks, where did it crash? At the accountant's office that was looking for the trillions of dollars. Now, where do those trillions of dollars go to? Slush funds and, offshore funds and stuff like that. We know. Well, we know. So.
In what sense?
I think it's a mystery. I don't think it's solved.
No.
Because all the events of 9/11 have not come out.
No, they haven't. Why do you think that is?
I would have to really study this, but it's just so many questions I have. So many. This is not the subject today, but
yes,
it leads to this feeling that there's a cabal or something in Washington that has been there. Kind of, it's strange.
There is a cabal, Mr. Stone. There is. They go to the Bohemian Grove and the Bilderberg Group and the World Economic Forum. They go there. They go to Davos and such. These are industrialists, and you know. You probably know, Mr. Stone, you know, I hope your house is still safe. I don't know if you live in LA, but yeah, it's very, very sad that history is not told truthfully, right? We need truth. We don't need to lie anymore. No more lies, right? No more lies. Stop lying. Stop making war. Stop the Pentagon, the military-industrial complex. They've grown too large, man. They're also in industry, right? Hollywood makes lots of movies that has the U.S. military and stuff, you know, so it's too large. As Eisenhower said, it's a spiritual thing. You know, Americans are born out of warfare, right? You guys fought the English to be independent. And it went well for quite a while. There was a tension brewing between the South and the North of America, and you had a civil war, right? There you go, an internal struggle. The two presidents and such. I know. So there is a cabal, Mr. Stone. Yeah, it's one of the comedians had a very interesting thing to say about that.
Ghost-like cabal that goes back to the 60s with Kennedy's murder.
Yes.
That continues in some strange embodiment today. And don't ask, it sounds like it, but it's a strange concept. But you have to think about it.
Well, we can't assess it because the files are still classified 23 years later.
Everyone's talking about conspiracies now. I mean,
they'll always be classified, right? There will always be a whitewash commission, you know, to say nothing wrong here, nothing wrong here. And people need to keep that in the back of their mind. Whether it's Canada or America or whatever country it is, you know, when there's something investigated by a government, there's always something hidden, you know. We as the Netherlands, we blame Russia for downing MH17. Whilst it happened in Ukraine, you know, it was warfare back then in 2014. And you can't blame Russia for that, right? You know, Russia, the USSR also had a military-industrial complex. And most of the weapons were made in the east of Ukraine. And they proclaim themselves as, you know, not part of Kiev anymore, autonomous. And they know where the weapons are. When Kiev says, hey, wait a minute, you're not allowed to do that. We're going to invade you guys. They know where the weapons are. So that's a new dynamic that probably has never been told. You know, you need to understand the situation.
a lot of the lunatics have come out of the asylum, no doubt.
Yes.
But there's a lot out there in the public that really should be examined and questioned and asked. And that's what's the establishment's freaking out, because we're overloading it. You know, it's running over the ramparts now. They can't defend them anymore.
Yes.
I mean,
well, you were once derided as a conspiracy nut. I don't think so anymore.
But I'm still alive.
You've lived to see your own vindication.
Well, yeah, in a sense. I mean, I'd love to see Kennedy understood better by the mass, because, you know, you still hear this silly Lee Harvey Oswald did it stuff. You know, I mean, They allegedly, they never said.
It's a whitewash commission. As I've said before, when something is done by government, they always keep something hidden. What's Oswald's role in this, right? You came from the USSR into Texas and suddenly got a gun and killed the president. What? Really? You believe that? You believe the magic bullet theory? You believe the bullshit that the government gives you? You pay for it, and maybe we're focusing too much on America, but it's Pax Americana, right? America has bases everywhere in the world. Everywhere. You got bases in South Korea. You got bases in Sudan and other places within Africa. And, it's amazing. It really is amazing. And the underlying current is, we're going to protect you. Don't look at us. We're going to protect you. But you have black sites where people are imprisoned and tortured and whatever else. That's all happening in Africa. We know. We know about the black sites. We know about the black sites over in east of Europe. We know. We know. You cannot be fooled anymore, right? We know what's going on. We know that there's probably going to be a new pandemic, right? In Belgium, they say you have to wear your face diaper again. Really? Is that going to come over here to the Netherlands too? Really? So we're also going to look at Joe Rogan, because Mr. Mel Gibson was on Joe Rogan's show.
Now for exercise.
Oh gosh, I'm terrible. I've come off. I'm falling apart. I got dead guys parts in my shoulder. I've got cadaver parts. This shoulder fell apart. This shoulder fell. A hip, a foot. It was terrible. I couldn't walk for about a year almost.
Really?
And so you fall down. That's partially why I had to go and see Breca to sort of get the couch potato stuff off. But I lift weights and I do some walking and stuff like that, like really get your heart rate up and stuff like that. So I'm trying. Hey, I'm 69 years old, so it's like it's getting to be like 7 decades worth.
Yeah. Yeah, 7 decades of beautiful movies. The Braveheart, The Patriot, other movies. And, you've earned your money, but you don't have a house anymore. Well, maybe you do. Maybe you got like a resort somewhere over there in Hawaii. Or is that also burned down? Isn't it odd? No one talks about Hawaii anymore, or Kauai, right? Neighbor island, those fires. We remember. We remember. What's her name? Yeah. There's so much on the mind, right? We remember the Hawaii fire. There. We remember. Now, you guys got to help me out here, right? Because there is a Democrat and now she's a Republican. What's her name? That's on the tip of the tongue. What's her name? Oh yeah, Tulsi Gabbard. How can we forget Tulsi Gabbard, right? Tulsi also went to Hawaii, and she's actually representative of Hawaii, and you know, she helped out the people there in Hawaii. That's a good thing to do. We remember, right?
Let's now turn it over to someone who knows firsthand what the islands are going through. Former Hawaii Congresswoman and Fox News contributor Tulsi Gabbard joins us now. Tulsi, thanks for being here under such tough terms. I can even just see it behind you. Describe the scene today as Hawaii wakes up to the next day and what to do about it.
You know, Pete, there's been a lot of coverage around what has been happening to the community of Lahaina, the communities surrounding Lahaina on West Maui, the devastation and suffering that they have gone through and are continuing to struggle through as we speak, just a few days after this disaster occurred. But where I am now is a different part of the island of Maui, an upcountry community called Kula. This community also experienced the devastation of the brush fires. As you're seeing, there's a couple of homes here on a small rural street that have been completely destroyed. The brush fires ripping through many of these neighborhoods just as they did through Lahaina.
Let me guess, you had no water, right? You had no water. Yeah, I'm sorry. We're on an island, but we have no water. Right? Yeah. No water. No water to put out the fire. Nope. Yeah, but there's an ocean there. No. Forget about that. We have no water. It's like amazing, man. And this is also democratically run, right? Well, the tables have shifted now, but this was during the Biden run, and no help for these people. Nope. But there are communities helping each other out, such as what happened in North Carolina, Hurricane Helene. North Carolina. Oh, wait. There. Hurricane Helene. And now they're living in the cold whilst California is burning. Is that part of climate change or weird, isn't it? Weird. Anyway, we're going to take a look at this. This is 2 hours ago, so pretty recent.
We're live. Welcome to Status Coup. I am Jason Peters. We are out here in North Carolina doing coverage of the Hurricane Helene relief 2.5, 3 months after the actual disaster happened. How are people doing? How are they overcoming? We are one of the only people doing a follow-up on this story because Status Coup does boots on the ground reporting that other outlets do not do. Standing here in Haven on the Hill in Waynesville, North Carolina, I'm here with Sean.
I'm sorry to intervene here, but if I were in America, right, the land of opportunity, and I'd have a truck, I'd be there. Right? I'd be there helping out my fellow Americans by supplying them food and other necessities. Now, I know many Americans have done that, and you should be proud of yourself of doing so, but don't neglect these people. don't forget, they have no house anymore. Very big mudslide and boulders going downhill and stuff like that, and the river swelling up. It's don't forget these people. These people are your fellow Americans. Don't forget McKenna, as I've shown, Dave Politis. Don't forget her. Right? Don't forget these people. We're all people.
Sean O'Brien. Sean, could you tell me a bit about Haven on the Hill, where we are, why you're here, and how you ended up here and what the situation is?
So we ended up in a hotel after Helene because we didn't have anywhere to go. And we were very grateful for that, but we were obviously looking to find something else, and we found we wanted to get a camper ourselves, but it's really we couldn't get it with our credit, so we found I guess Operation Rising Sun was the charity that brought us in, so they gave us the camper, and James Lunsford, I hope I'm saying his last name right. Mm-hmm. I should know that. We're on his land, his family's land. They let us park the camper here until we could find where we were gonna. We just needed a hand up, he always says, to figure out where we're gonna go next. And then just more campers started coming in, more people started coming in, and we have a community pantry, we have an outdoor kitchen, we have volunteers here all the time, and we're just, we're thriving as a community together. I mean, obviously there's everyday struggles, but we have people here that get out in the community every day and check on people, make sure they're good, make sure they got gas for their generator, make sure they have propane, make sure they have food, any necessity, and we're just all kind of coming together, and I really think, Haven on the Hill has just changed my life.
Yeah, here at Haven on the Hill, I talked to James, the creator of it. He said that there's more than 60 RVs, and I can see that is true, and more than 100 people staying here, some for different variations and durations of time. How
we love you, James. Or what is James, right? So much on the mind. Anyway, these interviews are pretty interesting. I wonder who this guy is here. Or maybe it's a girl. Who knows nowadays? No, it's a guy. Got a beard, so let's see what he has to say.
Got approved last week by the county. Okay. So now they won't have to be dependent on generators and carrying water. They'll have a more permanent to help them get back up on their feet.
That's good. That's good. You are helping out your fellow American, and you, sir, in the gray, are showing what's happening in North Carolina over there. Very interesting to see how communities come together to help each other out.
It got turned over to the addressing office Friday to get its own permanent address.
And if you come up, be careful. There is ice everywhere.
But, I mean, as far as mailing address, we have a mailing address. It's 158 Weeping Cherry Drive in Waynesville.
Got it. So what do we have here behind us? Oh! Yeah, I know. Play some ice hockey.
We have a cooking tent because we have a resident cook. So if the people don't even have to cook, it gives them a chance to get out and get together.
Yeah. The amount of propane and propane tanks.
Godly.
And I'd heard multiple residents talk about using Starlink to get access to the internet.
They were worried about they wouldn't have internet in this modern age and time, so that was one of the first things they had was the Starlink, so they would have.
Is the pantry?
Yep, no, this is the cooking tent. This was the temporary.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the permit now to build his permanent one.
Okay. Oh, look at all the prime. How'd you get all the prime?
From Prime.
Prime gave you all that prime?
Yeah. We have, under those tarps, are donated solar units to go in the RV starting next week.
Well, you don't need to store it in the fridge, right? Anyway, we gave a lot of information in 3 hours. I hope it's appreciated, right? We do this every Sunday. And yeah, what we want is a better world. We deserve that. We deserve a better world. We deserve a government that listens to the people. We deserve peace in our time. And we're going to close off with that instead of a song. Because I get all these warnings, you know, and yeah, I don't like these warnings. So, peace in our time, right? Here we go.
And the truth too rarely perceived. And that is the most important topic on earth, peace. What kind of a peace do I mean, and what kind of a peace do we seek? Not a Pax Americana, enforced on the world by American weapons of war. Not the peace of the grave or the security of the slave. I am talking about genuine peace, the kind of peace that makes life on earth worth living, the kind that enables men and nations to grow and to hope and build a better life for their children. Not merely peace for Americans, but peace for all men and women. Not merely peace in our time, but peace in all time. I speak of peace because of the new face of war. Total war makes no sense in an age where great powers can maintain large and relatively invulnerable nuclear forces and refuse to surrender without resort to those forces. It makes no sense in an age where a single nuclear weapon contains almost 10 times the explosive force delivered by all the Allied air forces in the Second World War. It makes no sense in an age when the deadly poisons produced by a nuclear exchange would be carried by wind and water and soil and seed to the far corners of the globe and to generations yet unborn. Today, the expenditure of billions of dollars every year on weapons acquired for the purpose of making sure we never need them is essential to the keeping of peace. But surely the acquisition of such idle stockpiles, which can only destroy and never create, is not the only, much less the most efficient, means of assuring peace. I speak of peace, therefore, as the necessary, rational end of rational men. I realize the pursuit of peace is not as dramatic as the pursuit of war, and frequently the words of the pursuers fall on deaf ears, but we have no more urgent task. Some say that it is useless to speak of peace, or world law, or world disarmament, and that it will be useless until the leaders of the Soviet Union adopt a more enlightened attitude. I hope they do. I believe we can help them do it. But I also believe that we must re-examine our own attitudes as individuals and as a nation. For our attitude is as essential as theirs. And every graduate of this school, every thoughtful citizen who despairs of war and wishes to bring peace should begin by looking inward, by examining his own attitude towards the possibilities of peace, towards the Soviet Union, towards the course of the Cold War, and towards freedom and peace here at home. First,
Anyway, let's close off with this. All right. Let's put a cherry on the top. All right. Let's close off with this here. Amount of Israeli bombs dropped on Gaza surpasses that of World War II. Think about that. Think about how many lives are under the rubble. Not even found yet. You know. Because we are the superior race. No, you're not. You're a human being. Quit it. Stop the wars. End all the wars now. And thank you all for watching. And we'll see each other next time. Don't forget to like, share, and